Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin, its valuations against the US dollar, as well as BTC.D, talking about the state of the altcoin market, where we're at, and what can we expect for the next month of December as we are in a new month. In addition to that, moving forward, rolling over to Q1. Remember, if you do like this video and the other videos that I make on this channel, be sure to hit the like button down below and also consider subscribing. So let's take a look first on the daily. The daily for Bitcoin, we're up 2.64%, currently trading at around $58,500. Um, uh, Rallying for the multiple days that we've had since November 27th. We have rallied about 8.76% for the week. So the beginning of the week, we're up about 2%, and kind of moseying our way further away from the 20-week moving average. The 20-week moving average for this week right now is 52,129. If you want to also account for the exponential moving average, so that's the 21-week EMA, that is at a little higher at 53,282. Both of which are coming in hot. They're you can see the trend. It's catching up very quickly. And if say if Bitcoin just decides to move sideways, essentially, for the next couple of weeks, we could see a cross, like we would run into the 20-week moving average essentially by the end of the month. Now we know that's not necessarily the case, because essentially if Bitcoin continues to move sideways, the 20-week moving average, or sorry, the 20-week and the 21-week moving averages will begin to taper off like so. However, obviously, Bitcoin, in order to move up, will need to outpace its 20-week and 21-week lagging averages of themselves. And so that's essentially what is playing out right now. Because we're in a new month, it's December 1st, we could take stock of what happened in October. October was a down month. We went down 7% essentially. And that is the answer from the 40% rally from the previous month of October. So November, not necessarily a great month, but not a terrible month. It could have been, it's very reminiscent to what we saw in September. We saw a huge wick, a pretty decent wick to 69,000, and a wick down to 53,000. So an exchange of roughly over $10,000, $14,500 in fluctuations for the month, much like what we saw here in September, where we saw a $13,000 fluctuation for that month. So with that said, things are looking pretty good, right? If we look at the RSI on the monthly, we could see that we're at 68.38. November closed at 67.74 on the RSI, and it's kind of insinuating a longer trend up, right? So if we're taking just an eyeball average of what the trend is, you could see that the trend is a lot less steep as the previous one, or even this one, right? So you could see that it's getting less steep over time, and so this is essentially what we're looking at right now. With that said, last week we saw essentially a bounce off the 21-week EMA. We didn't necessarily go right to it. The low was 53,308, and the EMA was at 52,763. So a matter of $500 or so, $600 was between us and the 21-week EMA. Now, if we continue to rally at this point, say break to new all-time highs, and we don't necessarily look back, then we can interpret this as a bounce, or at least I would. If it's within 1%, a couple $100, when the valuation's in the tens of thousands of dollars, I would call that a test. So let's we'll keep that in mind. We'll keep that in our back pocket. Obviously, things can change. We can fall back to the 21-week and the 20-week moving averages, and hold that for a number of weeks, much like what we saw in the year of 2020 in September. But obviously, we've only wicked down to it once. We don't necessarily know it will do it again. It looks like a clean bounce from right now, but we'll keep an eye on that for the time being. Now, with that said, we need to, when looking at the health of the altcoin market, as an example, right, we need to take stock of the strength of Bitcoin. And right now, it looks pretty good. Regardless of this drop that we've had, this is, not even a terrible drop. Even taking it from the wick to wick, it's a 22% drop. We've experienced worse than this year. Taking stock of a 51% correction from Bitcoin, and we survived. Everyone's still okay except if you sold at the bottom. So with that said, as long as Bitcoin looks strong, altcoins have a very good chance of rallying as well. And this is kind of like what we're seeing for the past quarter, right? Since October, okay, since the middle of October, we saw a downtrend of altcoins from the high of 47.73% to about 41.63, right? So we could see a noticeable dip in Bitcoin dominance. All coins are taking the reins, at least for the back half of the quarter. Um, but don't be misconstrued, because when we flip it to the monthly and actually look at the opening of October, um, there's not much quite difference, right? The difference between the open and right where we are is 0.28 percentage points. We essentially, Bitcoin dominance essentially did not move for the for the current quarter of 2021, which is interesting to say the least, right? You could see if we look at the monthly and say, oh, look, like October, week of October 18th, altcoins took the reins, but in reality, for the quarter, altcoins didn't really take much, right? It was pretty much, like the same, uh, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something to note. Now we still have the rest of December, and this is where it gets interesting, and this is where you get conflicting pieces of evidence on the charts, which you can use or not use to then further your narrative, right? So with that said, you could see this structure here. We've made noticeable bounces at the 40%, 39% dominance line. You could see here back in May and then back in September, we both made bounces. In addition, we kind of have this not necessarily a straight line, but an area of resistance, ranging from 46 to 48%, 49% dominance. And so we've been kind of in this sideways channel for basically half the year. And so we're trending back down again, and it could very mean in the month of December we can make another hit to the bottom. Now this is where it gets interesting. Do we bounce, right? Do we bounce and Bitcoin takes back dominance? It goes back to the upper 40s, or do we break through? And do we get to the previous lows of Bitcoin dominance at about 36%? This is where it gets tricky, and this is where interpretations might differ, right? Um, as of right now, when I look at the altcoin market, you have to take into account of Ethereum. Ethereum is the largest altcoin. There are some arguments to say that it is not an altcoin, but for the sake of clarity, we're talking about it as an altcoin because it affects the Bitcoin dominance chart. If Ethereum looks relatively healthy, if Bitcoin looks relatively healthy, then odds are Bitcoin dominance is going to drop. And my bet is that it will break through the floor. Now, that is not something you can cash in, right? This is not something. This is not solid. This is entire speculation. But considering the fact that Ethereum, for the beginning, essentially since the quarter began, which was in October. So we would take Bitcoin dominance, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio at 0.0706. You could see that Ethereum has outpaced Bitcoin for the quarter by 14%. And considering we broke out of the structure, we're moving into Q1. There's a lot of good things going for Ethereum, which leads me to think that altcoins are going to do relatively well. And because Ethereum takes up so much of the altcoin space and is also in itself a driver of the altcoin market, it seems to me that it seems fairly likely that Bitcoin dominance will come back down to this line and break through. Now, what are the chances that we don't? right? What are the chances that Bitcoin in this scenario potentially Bitcoin dominance does come back down to the line at 39-40% dominance and then bounces back up? This scenario is quite not necessarily out of the realm of possibilities because we kind of experienced it. Bitcoin can drop to the 20-week moving average and stay there, right? And stay there and ride that line until it bounces at a later time. Now that bounce and the riding of the 20-week can potentially be detrimental to altcoins. We know this to be a fact because it happened in September. This area here, altcoins did not do well, and then after which, when Bitcoin rallied, it took a span of what this happened in August, and it didn't altcoins didn't get back reins until April 5th, week of in April. And actually in May is when altcoins really started popping off. So you could see that if Bitcoin does bounce to the scale of what it did back in 2020 into 2021, altcoins have the chance to falter, right? And that paints a very convincing scenario of Bitcoin dominance coming back down to the line and then bouncing back up and potentially breaking the upper channel, the upper resistance area. So those are two main schools of thought that I have in my head when going into the month of December and into quarter in Q1. As the charts show, Q1 is very good for Ethereum. Q1 is very good for altcoins. All you need to do is take a look at total two and Ether Bitcoin within Q1, and you can see that the gains are pretty good throughout the span of Ethereum's life, essentially. So we are going into December, or we are in December. We're going into Q1. Ethereum at the moment is looking relatively healthy, looking relatively strong in comparison to Bitcoin. Altcoins are kind of waking up. They're bouncing off of key support levels, and Bitcoin is above the 20-week moving average. These are all, you know, the recipes to a perfect storm, and the storm isn't bad, but it's something that could be quite impressive that we are about to see. Again, this is entire speculation, but from what I see with Ethereum, what I see with Bitcoin, what I see with the trend of Bitcoin dominance, it seems fairly likely that altcoins are going to have a very good quarter one. Anyway, that's all for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.